EELÜNAAPÉEWI LAHKÉEWIIT are revered by other indigenous nations as the Grandfather Tribe. Previously known as the Delaware Nation, they are located approximately 35 kilometers east of Chatham. In many First Nations communities, there are stories and experiences among indigenous people of hate and racism. Regardless if it was subtle or blatant, the darkness that is ever present from the days of first contact between our ancestors and the settlers to even as recent as 2023 has remained as an obstacle.
Virgil Tobias. Okay, I'm from Moravian of the Thames, band number 47 here in southwestern Ontario. I've lived here most of my life. I attended university for 5 years, and other than that, I've pretty well been here most of my life.
Kwinganawalomwa, Nida Shinzi Megan, Ni Nonjie, EELÜNAAPÉEWI LAHKÉEWIIT, Takwa Delungomawak, Wakni Lenaapékwe. So, Kwinganawalomwa, greetings everybody. My name is Megan Logan. I come from the Lenape community of EELÜNAAPÉEWI LAHKÉEWIIT. I am a member of the Turtle Clan, and I'm a Lenape woman. So I guess educationally, I attended Jordan College in the Indigenous Community and Social Development Program, and I'm currently employed with the Chiefs of Ontario as a health policy analyst. I also do a lot of community work, leading the Lenape Youth Collective alongside other young people in my community to just really empower, educate, and inspire the next generation of Lenape leaders.
Well, my full name is Emma Hannah Kingstonefish, but most people call me Hannah. And I'm from EELÜNAAPÉEWI LAHKÉEWIIT, but I was born and raised in Peterborough, Ontario.
My name is Welby Kier. My traditional name is Nipiwalu Atawapi, which means one who looks beyond. My community is here in Moravian Town.
What comes to mind when you hear the words hate or racism?
Well, a story from Phil Snake actually comes along that's personal to this community. You know, in '67 they took all of us out of the little red schoolhouses and they put us together in bigger schools. And Phil was telling me one day that this reserve received money, and the closest school was Orford Township School in Highgate, and so they went there. And Orford told them, "No thanks, we don't want your kids here." So that's how we ended up in Howard Harwich Moravian, which is another township over. I always remember that story, and I remember being told if you forget those things, they'll repeat themselves. So, and I remember this when we used to fish along the river, and the game wardens flew over top of the river in a helicopter with their guns out the doors, and pulled women and children out of cars looking for fish off reserve. And those days, it's like you don't forget those days.
Immediately think to learned behaviors. I think of the word racism, and I think of, prejudice and discrimination, to another marginalized group of people, based solely on race. And I think that racism, can take many forms, the racism that we see on a day-to-day basis. As well as systemic, racism and discrimination that, we also see in our day-to-day lives.
Racism is more of a feeling rather than like just a word, because you can use any word, but it's just a matter of feeling.
Miscommunication and unwillingness to be open-minded.
Tell us about a time you've heard, seen, or experienced hate or racism.
Well, I never really experienced it until we got off the reserve and started going to the bigger schools, and it was playing games like Indians against the white kids playing soccer and things like that, and you heard that being voiced then, which is really it was foreign to me to hear that, and so I didn't really know how to take it or understand it. And it wasn't years later when I realize what it was. And going to university for social work helped a lot in understanding racism and, and looking back and thinking, hey, that was pretty damn racist, those things they did. And, like I remember coming from Blenheim, we worked in Blenheim, myself and a couple other guys from here. And one day we decided we're going to go down Ridge Road. We're going to go down a highway, and we met a cop, and that cop just pulled right over and come around and pulled us over. And we were, we were sober and everything else. And the cop said, do you know why I pulled you over? And the driver looked at him and said, yeah, because we're the first Indians you've seen today. And, and the cop just took that off the shoulder, it's like it wasn't no big deal. But I didn't think much of it till I started going to university and started learning about, overt and covert racism and what that is. And realizing that I had experienced it a lot in my life. And
growing up in the public school system here, just where we're geographically located, rural, small town Ontario, and a lot of the people that live, around the area and, on the farms and, that type of thing, they do carry very racist behaviors. And so I think that's something me and my peers experienced, all throughout public school, elementary school right up to high school.
Well, actually, I just experienced it a couple days ago where a guy was freaking out about bagels because we were taking a little too long because everyone was picking through them and they were everywhere, so we had to find the correct bagel, but he was getting upset with us for doing the thing that other people did. And the only difference was probably because we had darker skin and my dad is also disabled.
I used to be a cadet, and I spent 6 years in cadets, had all the memorabilia, the t-shirts, the army shirts and all that. And I wore one to work, and I had gorgeous, beautiful, long black hair down to the middle of my back and was getting ready to go into work. At that time, I decided to have a bite to eat before I start working, and there was a group of soldiers that were in the food court at the same time. One of them came over to me and told me to remove my shirt, said I didn't deserve to wear it. I kind of laughed and chuckled and said, no, I deserve to wear this. I earned the shirt and I'm going to keep on wearing it. He says, no, not the way you are. I said, you have no right to talk to me like that. The soldier who spoke to me in such a way was black. And I looked at him and I said, if you look around to your soldiers, your friends behind you, they will probably have no problem throwing you under the bus because of the color of your skin. We should be working together, not against each other. And at this point, security was about ready to nab him, and I'm just kind of waving them down, going, no, don't, I've got this. And I just spoke to him quietly and politely, and I said, listen, there's people in your unit that probably don't like you for the color of your skin and don't want to be with you because they don't trust you. This is the same thing. You don't trust me, but you have no idea that I could be someone that you can, lay down your life for, or I lay down your life for. It doesn't matter. Like, you're following somebody else's direction. We should be following our own. There's security right now looking to pounce on you at a given's notice if I tell them go. And I'm telling them to stop because I think there's a miscommunication here. If you get arrested here, you're gonna get kicked out, you're gonna go sent to the MPs, and things are gonna be very hard for you. I know this because I spent time in the military. So I don't want that happening for you. So here's your choice. You can choose to go back to your friends and leave me alone, or you can choose to escalate this and get arrested and find out what happens. It took a couple moments and I turned around, walked away. He walked away too, thank God. And that was it. I never heard anything from it since, but it just felt very sickening to my stomach that someone of color would come to myself and say, listen, you don't deserve to wear the clothes that we wear. And even though we've had several family members in the military serving our country, or serving Canada, even when we didn't have status. We weren't even legal citizens. We were just property of Canada. So it's very sad.
How does it make you feel when you see or hear about hate or racism?
I think a lot of feelings come up. I think there's definitely a level of shame that's carried, a level of discomfort in those particular instances. I think a lot of times it causes, reactions. Reactions in the moment, reactions such as, anger, and violence. I think that, was our experience growing up in the public school system. Like I said, we experienced a lot of instances of racism, and, I think a lot of our peers, especially a lot of the, the boys that we grew up with, they felt that they had to resort to violence to, I guess, combat that racism that they're feeling. They didn't really have an outlet, right? Anywhere they felt they could really go to be, heard and supported and, combating the racism. So I think a lot of times, we did resort to violence, having to, band together and support one another as, First Nations, Indigenous students. We had to be each other's kind of support system, and a lot of time that did resort in, violent situations, having to kind of fight to stand your ground and, to make the other kids, I guess, scared to kind of be racist again or to say that again. But, it was just all throughout, it was, you effing Indians, you dirty Indians, just, those are the kind of mindsets of the people that we grew up with. And I think it was learned in the home. And I think that is just a lot of unfortunately, a lot of the mindsets of still, I think a lot of the small towns that surround our First Nation community.
What do you think causes hate or racism?
Because they don't understand. They don't understand you're not like them. And so I think it's a desire to make you more like them is what they want. And like, we're not like them, where we have our own way of seeing the world, our own belief system, and and our own lodges, and those lodges they talk about respect, and they say our creation story is true, and the only way that we can expect any respect from people is to also say the Bible and the creation story in that is true, was given to them people. This is what we have. There's a huge misunderstanding about that. It's like, we don't want what you have. You've given us what you have, and there ain't many of us left now, so you keep it.
Probably the environment that they grew up in. I know that when I grew up, I never really thought anyone differently, but I know that there's certain people in your life that you affect the way you think and your views on people, and just people in general.
A lot of miscommunication. It causes hate, a lot of fear. People fear what they don't understand. People tend to grow up in a lifestyle that doesn't afford them to look beyond that. So that sort of thing festers up the hate, because I grew up Indigenous, and I've had the privilege of having a stepfather who's white. I've had the privilege of growing up in the city instead of growing up on the res, but it showed me different outlooks of life. And my stepfather always made it a point to make me proud of where I am and where I've come from, and to make sure that I have pride in my heritage.
How can we move forward today for the sake of our future?
In working with the Indigenous Justice Division, and if you go into their Bimikaway program, you really learn a lot. It's been really beneficial to people, and being able to see how they do it. It's a real eye opener. And at the end, we do a circle and we ask them that question. What can we do in the future? And they thank us for a better understanding of. That's why that Indian is on the corner drunk. It's like, he's carrying so much personal garbage, and you want to look down on him? like now you know why. Now you know what he's been through. And maybe you get a little compassion from them out of that, or something, at least a change, at least some movement from them. And that's what I think.
I can't say enough about educating our youth, Canadian youth, and they're so open-minded at young ages and receptive to learning. And I think about my own children, and we live in London, we live in the city, and so they go to they go into the city school system, and they don't learn racism, right? They're so multicultural, and they have friends of every background. They have Indian friends, they have Asian friends, and so they don't have that racist mindset. And I think growing up on reserve, sure, we experience racism as well, but I think we also, in one sense, are racist ourselves. I think we see that a lot in our First Nation is a lot, racism ourselves, towards other demographics. And, I know, my family's no exception. So, really trying to do a lot of unlearning. And, my own children have been a big help in that, teaching me. And, they taught me about Ramadan and these different, ethnic holidays. And so, it really brings me hope in that sense. And I really see the value in, educating our youth today at young ages, because they do understand. They're not too young. And, I think those are, the steps we should be taking.
The way I was raised, I do it with going forward with kindness and respect. Because in order to receive kindness, you must give kindness. Same with respect.
I think truth and reconciliation is a very small tightrope. I think we all need to come together and listen to each other, learn from each other, and acknowledge that what happened in the past happened, but we can learn from it and move forward from it. There's a lot of misgiving from people in our own community, the elders who were residential school survivors. My grandma being one of them, and a couple of my friends who are now long past didn't have a good time in residential schools. And I think if we could all come together and be honest and work through those feelings, I think we can have a better mindset moving forward.
It is our hope that the stories and experiences shared here in this video can help bring understanding, awareness, and education to those who do not realize the kind of hate and racism that Indigenous people have gone through. In order to move forward and forge a new relationship between nations, we must let go of these negative views and work together.